Hello and welcome to today's lecture. The topic for discussion here is formulating the research design and the research methods. And so here we'll be looking at covering basically the meaning of research design, what the features are, and the types of research design. So we want to understand by the end of the lecture the importance of research design. Now, what is a research design, or what is a design generally? Okay, so here, let's even think outside of research, but we all know that design usually has to do with coming up with a plan or a strategy to carry out a particular piece of work. So more or less a structure. Okay, if you are a designer, you would, before you design a cloth or a dress or any outfit, you want to come out with the structure, with the design. Okay, you want to come out with a plan of how you want to see it on paper. Okay, so basically that is what it is. So what does it mean to design? What is involved in designing? Your research design will be the general plan of how you will go about answering your research questions. Okay, so you usually start a research with a topic, and from that topic, you are coming out with your research objectives and research questions. And based on that, you want to be able to come out with the design, because that is like your goal. That is what you want to achieve, your research objectives. And so your design should be the roadmap to achieving that, nothing else. So in research, it's basically consists of your plan, and your plan has to do with the methods you are going to use in collecting your data, in analyzing it, and all of that. So your design would tell us how you're going to go about that. So like I've said, the purpose is to be able to answer your research questions effectively. So it's like saying you want to travel to the northern part of the country. There are so many options to traveling there. You can decide to walk, you can decide to ride a bicycle, you can decide to drive, you can decide to take a public bus, or you can take a flight if there is one available. So there are a lot of ways to get there, but you want to choose the most effective. Which of them would get you there either on time, that if that is your focus, or if your focus is with finances, you want to choose the method that will save you that. Okay, if you're someone, if maybe your timelines are very limited and all of that, you may want to choose flight, but do you have the money? Can you afford it? All of that comes into play in coming out with your design. And that can be applied in the research sense, because in this case, you can look at what method, how efficient will that method be? Can I afford it? Do I have the time? All of that counts. So considerations when designing a research project. The research design, depending upon the needs of the researcher, may be a very detailed statement, or only furnish the minimum information required for planning the research project. Types of research design. They're classified basically usually into three. explanatory, exploratory, or descriptive. These are broad categorizations. And also we have research strategies. Sometimes it is your research design or research design, the broad, that will determine the research strategy that you would go ahead to use. So exploratory, as the word depicts, it means finding out what is happening, to seek new insights, to ask questions, and to assess phenomena in a new light. Usually, there are certain research areas that are new, they are gray. It's not been explored. People don't know much about it. Okay, so you want to begin to go into that area and look at what's happening there. And that you call an exploratory research design. And in that sense, what you're saying is that, so when you look at your research, the research you want to do, depending on the topic and even the objectives and questions, you can ask yourself, by then you would have known whether it's a new area or not. Okay, so it's extremely helpful if you wish to clarify your understanding of a problem, or unsure of the precise nature of the problem. Okay, so even COVID-19 is still a new area. Artificial intelligence is still a new area, even though it's now advanced. Okay, because every day people are beginning to research into that area. So the earlier you begin, when the problem has started, then you can call it exploratory. Exploratory research design involves getting a feel of the situation. Emphasizes a discovery of ideas and possible insights that may help in identifying areas of further rigorous study. So usually when we do an exploratory, it is a ground for other researchers to build on, because then you have dug out the foundation and then we can begin to build on that. It is not conclusive studies. It's usually open, and it allows for flexibility because it's new, and sometimes what you think you have found and what it is might not be what exactly it is. So there has to be series of research here and there to confirm some of these. And it is adaptable to change. Yes, and direction likely to change. So it is the kind that you will start, you think that, oh, I can use this method, and then later you realize that no, and it's all because it's a new area. So as you go this direction, you need to be aware of these things. Explanatory is the second, and this is studies that establish causal relationships between variables and may be termed explanatory studies. The emphasis here is on studying a situation or a problem in order to explain the relationships between variables. So here you want to establish a relationship between one thing to another. Okay, you want to establish, for instance, the relationship between studying for longer hours and the grades that you will get, or your class, or the GPA that you will come up with. So you come up with a study in that regard, then you are doing an explanatory research. You're trying to explain this relationship. Then there's descriptive research design. And here the objective of descriptive design is to portray an accurate profile of persons, events, or situations. So like the word also says description, that means you are describing something. So you want to sort of take an account of a situation. You want to tell us the situation of, or the prevalence of teenage pregnancy in Ghana today. It means that you are giving us a picture in the form of research. It seeks simply to describe a situation. It is employed to facilitate the description and inference building in a study. Description or inference could be quantitative or qualitative in nature. Okay, so you can decide to do that by looking at it quantitatively or qualitatively. Descriptive designs only describe the phenomenon and the study. Important things to note when you're using this design is to go back to your research questions when lost or confused. Look to the literature for similar studies to your own and review the strategy taken by other authors. Very, very important. I always tell students that it's one of the reasons why we do literature review, where you are trying to actually look at what people have done and to buy ideas. Yeah, so it's important that you would review literature, especially in the area of the research methods, so that if you are new with research and you don't know what methods to use, it usually would advise you on what people have used and how it has been successful, and so that you can do the same. Then we'll look at the research strategies: experiments, survey, case studies, ethnography, action, and then grounded theory and archival briefly. So experiments, usually these are to study relationships, links, effects among variables. Okay, so you can do experiments, whether with exploratory, explanatory, for instance. You can use both, or you can call them both. So with experiments, it is a classical form of research that owes much to the natural sciences. So you will find that mostly it is the natural sciences that will embark on experiments, okay, because it will be too expensive in terms of, we can't use lives of people to experiment. So the social sciences will not venture, except the psychology that is able to use this. Survey is another popular strategy. It answers the who, what, where, how much, and how many of research questions. So if you have research questions that are dwelling on who does what or who is doing what is happening where, you know, how things are done, then you are looking at survey. And it is usually associated with the deductive approach. It is used for exploratory and descriptive research. And they allow the collection of a large amount of data from a sizable population in a highly economical way. So it is one that can be used to collect data from large amounts of population, and also it is quite economical. This is commonly done using a questionnaire administered to a sample, right? So these data are standardized, allowing easy comparison. It is perceived as authoritative by people in general, and is both comparatively easy to explain and to understand. So you come up with a questionnaire. It's, in fact, I think it's the most common tools in research, questionnaire, okay? And it's a quantitative study. So especially when you are using it for large population, very, very large, in thousands, you call them a survey. So you have people come around to your house, or these days you can use online tools, even an email, send it to people and retrieve it after they have filled the questionnaire. Then we have the case study. The case study is a strategic, or it's a strategy for doing research which involves an empirical investigation of a particular contemporary phenomenon within its real life context using multiple sources of evidence, right? Opposite of the experimental strategy where the research is undertaken within a highly controlled context. So unlike the experiment where you control the variables or you control one and then leave the other, here you are actually going into the situation and viewing it, to see what is happening. So it's mostly can be related to a descriptive study. So a case study is used to explore and gain a deep understanding of the context of the research. The case study strategy also has considerable ability to generate answers to the question why and what and how, etc. So you can use, for instance, if you are studying the response of students to the UTAC strike, you can use the case of GCT. You probably cannot look at everywhere. So you're looking at it from that perspective. So GCT becomes your case study, right? They may include, for example, interviews. So you can do an interview, you can do a questionnaire or a survey, you can do an observation or a documentary analysis. These are all doable. We have what we call triangulation in the case study. So in case studies, you can use different data collection techniques within one study so that you ensure that data is telling you what you think it is telling you. So it's just like doing some checks and balances with different techniques so that you are sure it is what it is saying. So we have different strategies in the case study: a single case study, multiple, holistic case, and versus embedded. Single case studies usually are done when the phenomenon being studied is unique. So it's one and it's unique. Maybe it sometimes can even be one person you are looking at as a case. Multiple case studies are done to establish whether the findings of the first case also occur in the other case, right? So more like a comparison. Holistic cases focus on one whole area of study, researching on an organization as a whole, while embedded cases add subunits or other areas to the main case. Then we have ethnography. It's a form of qualitative research design to study cultures and groups. And the purpose is to describe and explain the social world the research subjects inhabit in the way in which they would describe and explain it. It is time consuming, takes place over an extended time period as the researcher needs to immerse himself or herself in the social world being researched as completely as possible. So usually you want to study the culture of some people, you want to study the way a group of people do things from their perspective. You're just not going to sit back and describe it. You're going to look at it from the way they see it. And so it's time consuming because you have to blend up with the community. So sometimes you have to be there for a long period, as long as years, so that you almost become one of them. And then you begin to look at things from their perspective, either the way you observe the way they say things, or you listen to their explanations to why they do what, okay? Because when you want to learn about culture and you go there just once, they are tempted to tell you what they can tell you for the time. But when you live with them, they are able to be more detailed because then you see it day to day and you can give a more accountable story. Then there is the action research. It's either research initiated to solve an immediate problem or a reflective process of progressive problem solved, led by individuals working with others in teams or as part of a community of practice to improve the way they address issues and problems. An example is an individual action research involving working independently on a project, such as an elementary school teacher conducting her own in-class research project with her students. Teams of staff members would work together using school-wide action research. So you can have a research that It's like real life, but it is also intended to solve a real problem happening now. Right. Then the grounded theory that involves the collection and analysis of data. So grounded is from the fact that you are collecting data from the ground. Okay, the theory is grounded. So it was introduced by Glaser-Strauss in 1967 to legitimize qualitative research. Then archival research, as the word says, archival from the word archive, is research involving primary sources held in an archive, a special collection, library, or other repository. And its archival sources can be manuscripts, documents, records, including electronic records, objects, sound and audiovisual materials, or other materials. And so these are all things that you can do as strategies. So, okay.